Hey, how the hell did you get in here? That was probably the stupidest intro I've ever done. Yeah, so this is probably going to be the most me video I've ever put up on this channel, but you know what? Whatever. Everyone who knows me knows that I absolutely love the movie Jaws, and with good reason. It's brilliantly directed, perfectly casted, and it's set the stage for who I believe to be the greatest filmmaker of all time, Steven Spielberg, to achieve the legendary status that he has today. I truly do believe that Jaws is the greatest film of all time, which is why I found it perfectly fitting that I make a 107 facts video on it. But also because when I was in high school, I was actually the first person to do a 107 facts video about the anime High School DxD, and Channel Frederator actually commented and told me to make another one, so I figured it'd be fun to beat them to another topic. Too slow once again, Channel Frederator. I'm just kidding. I love you guys and I love your videos, and as far as making another High School DxD 107 facts video, which I know I promised you guys I would do, I will definitely do it the day that YouTube decides that anime is advertiser friendly. And if I'm being perfectly honest, it's not. I would know because I've seen all 4 seasons of the show.
You what?
Yeah. High School Albert was a different Albert. But enough about my bizarre taste in anime. Here is 107 facts about Jaws. Number 1. Jaws is a 1975 horror film that was directed by Steven Spielberg and starred Roy Scheider, Robert Shaw, and Richard Dreyfuss as the film's respective leads. Number 2. The film was actually based on the hit 1974 novel of the same name that was written by Peter Benchley. Number 3. Peter Benchley initially got the idea for the novel after hearing a story about a fisherman catching a 4,550-pound great white shark. He then thought to himself, what would happen if one of these things came around and wouldn't go away? Number 4. When in the office of the film's producers, Richard Zanuck and David Brown, a 27-year-old Steven Spielberg actually saw the film's manuscript and noticed that the top page said Jaws. Upon initial viewing, Spielberg thought it was a story about a dentist. Number 5. In spite of popular belief, Jaws wasn't actually Steven Spielberg's first theatrically released film, but instead it was his second. Spielberg's first theatrical film ever actually came out a year before Jaws and was titled The Sugarland Express. Number 6. Spielberg was actually inspired to do the film because the story reminded him of a TV movie he'd made in 1971 called Duel, which was a movie about a killer truck and also featured the same haunting roar at the end of Jaws. Number 7. Steven Spielberg actually wasn't the first choice to direct Jaws, but he was ultimately chosen because they believed he had the artistic vision to make the film a success. And also because, according to Peter Benchley, the initial director couldn't tell the difference between a shark and a whale.
Peter Benchley said, look, I don't want to work with a director that can't distinguish, the shark from the whale, from Moby Dick. So it came to me.
Number 8. Before entering the project, Spielberg actually wanted to direct a screenplay called Lucky Lady, but his mentor and at the time president of MCA Universal, Sid Sheinberg, told him that Lucky Lady wouldn't be a commercial success and convinced Steven to drop the idea of directing it altogether. Number 9. Steven Spielberg eventually came on board as director of the film after Sheinberg basically ordered him to do it. Sheinberg even went on to say that Spielberg felt hurt that he was forced by, of all people, his own friend to do a movie that he really didn't want to make at the time. To add insult to injury, Lucky Lady actually did go on to become a very successful film. Number 10. When production began, the script not only wasn't finished, but it was often changed multiple times throughout the week, sometimes even throughout the day. Number 11. Another issue the production faced was the fact that the one guy who everyone wanted to play Hooper, Richard Dreyfuss, didn't even want to play the role. Dreyfuss has explained that he initially turned down the role because he knew that filming the movie was going to be a nightmare. And he wasn't wrong. Number 12. Spielberg was sitting alone at a party one day when he was approached by a stranger who asked him why he was all alone. Steven then told them about the many problems he was having with the pre-production of Jaws, one of those problems being not being able to find an actor who can play the character Chief Brody. The stranger then said, "What about me? I'm an actor. I'd love to be in Jaws." And as fate would have it, that stranger was none other than Roy Scheider. Number 13. In May of 1974, Jaws was about to begin shooting when they realized they didn't have a shark. This was one of the first of many times in which the production crew had to improvise. Their first idea? Train a real-life great white shark. No, I'm not making that up. Number 14. After finding out that you can't actually train sharks, the production team turned to Bob Matty, who had experience with building and designing giant animatronics for other films. In total, he created 3 animatronic sharks, one that moved left to right, one that moved right to left, and a shark sled that was attached to an underwater crane. Number 15. Spielberg actually named the shark Bruce, after his lawyer, Bruce Raymer, who's actually still his lawyer to this day. Number 16. On their first day testing the shark in real ocean water, the animatronic shark sank to the ocean floor. But don't feel too bad. If it's any consolation, it's about to get so much worse. Number 17. The reason for the shark's initial malfunction was because its schematics were only able to function in fresh water, not salt water, so they had to completely redesign the intricacies of the shark's mechanics. The end result? Absolutely nothing changed. Number 18. Since Bruce refused to cooperate with the production team, Spielberg needed to think of a new way to show the shark without actually showing it. Thus, the yellow barrels were to be used in the shark's place. Number 19. One day, when Steven Spielberg was experimenting with the shark's mouth mechanics, a very curious individual crawled into the shark's mouth to see how the hydraulics worked. The shark then proceeded to break almost immediately after. The person responsible for this was a relatively unknown director at the time named George Lucas. Number 20. The local government of Martha's Vineyard was very strict with Spielberg about using the island as its main filming location. One of the rules they had in particular was for Quint's Boathouse, a set piece built specifically for the movie. The production team was allowed to build it so long as the set piece was destroyed immediately after filming and everything in the area be put back exactly as they found it, even the garbage that was on the floor. Number 21. All the shots on the island were filmed over the course of 40 days. Afterwards, the crew was then finally ready to go out to film at sea, completely unaware of how the production was going to change the landscape of filmmaking forever. Number 22. From this point on, the production of Jaws was a filmmaker's worst nightmare. Their crew constantly dealt with virtually every kind of problem a production can go through. Number 23. Steven Spielberg felt that the movie absolutely had to be filmed on the real Atlantic Ocean. His reasoning was because he felt that it would be the best way to fully immerse the audience in the film's world, and felt that he wouldn't have been able to achieve that same effect had the film been shot in a tank or a calm lake. Number 24. One of Spielberg's tactics to give off a more convincing sense of isolation was to exclude the island and civilian boats from the background. This was to add an extra layer of tension, implementing the idea that the characters are nowhere near safety and are therefore vulnerable at all times. Number 25. Despite the creativity behind the idea, it actually failed multiple times due to civilian boats being in the background of shots, sometimes even coming up to the production because they were so curious as to why there were so many boats gathered in one place. Number 26. Whenever they were interrupted by other boats, Spielberg and crew had to sometimes wait for hours just for the boat to get out of the way of their shot. On some days, it took so long for the boats to get out of the way that by the time they were out of sight, it was already time to start heading back to shore. This was a common problem that would cost hours and sometimes even entire days worth of filming. Number 27. Civilian boats weren't the only thing that constantly interrupted the production, though. Oftentimes, production was also delayed due to uncooperative weather. The weather was so inconsistent, in fact, that you can even see rapid weather changes in between shots in the final film. Number 28. The film actually had 2 different orcas, one of which was specifically designed to sink for the film's climax. Number 29. To achieve what we'll call the boat tipping scene, the movie's DP, or director of photography, Bill Butler arranged for a bolt to be screwed onto the backside of the boat and have it be tied to another boat that would then drive off. When the boat reached the end of the line, it gave off the illusion that a shark was tipping the boat on its side. Number 30. The effect definitely worked, but because the film's production wasn't allowed to be easy, something had to go horribly wrong. That something was a plank being ripped out from the boat, leaving behind a big hole and causing the boat to sink with the actors and crew members on it. Number 31. As the boat was sinking, Spielberg was heard yelling for everyone to get the actors off the boat, whilst the film's sound guy, John Carter, who was on the sinking boat, was holding his sound equipment above his head, screaming, "Fuck the actors! Save the sound department!" Number 32. Thankfully, no one was injured because of this little incident, but the camera and its film reel actually got soaked in salt water. Fearing that this would damage their footage, the crew put the film in fresh water and shipped it to New York. Much to everyone's relief, the film was fine and not a single frame of footage was lost. Number 33. The animosity between the Jaws crew and the New England weather wasn't the only thing bringing tension to the production. There was also the animosity between Robert Shaw and Richard Dreyfuss, a feud that was just as comedic as it was, at times, kinda scary. Number 34. Much like the characters in the film, Robert Shaw and Richard Dreyfuss butted heads many times on set, mostly due to Shaw's constant instigation and belittlement of Richard. Number 35. One of the many cruel and, albeit creative, ways Robert Shaw would torment Dreyfuss was to verbally attack him, sometimes even going as far as to calling him fat and saying that he drank too much.
And how do you psych yourself up for this kind of a regimen every day?
Scotch, vodka, gin, whatever. No, we all have different methods. I do tend to drink when totally bored, and Dreyfuss just talks interminably.
Number 36. According to Richard Dreyfuss, he attempted to ignore Robert Shaw's antics until the day he threw Shaw's shot glass out the window. Shaw would then retaliate by taking the production crew's fire hose and blasting it square in Dreyfuss's face. As you can probably imagine, Dreyfuss was not pleased. Number 37. Oddly enough, Dreyfuss has gone on record to say that he actually holds no resentment towards Robert Shaw, and even considers him his friend to this very day. Number 38. Robert Shaw was actually very nice to Richard Dreyfuss. Granted, it was when the cameras weren't rolling, but even so, Robert Shaw was said to have been very kind to Dreyfuss in spite of their rivalry. But when they were on set, it was a whole other story. Number 39. The Robert Shaw and Richard Dreyfuss feud at times may have been hard to watch for the production team, but many people on the production team consider it to be what made their characters' rivalry so authentic. After all, Hooper and Quint are constantly competing with each other in an attempt to see who's the better man. Number 40. In case you forgot about the fact that the shark never worked, no you didn't, and neither did anyone else on the island, as the words, "the shark is not working," could be heard essentially every day on radios all over the island of Martha's Vineyard.
The shark is not working. The shark is not working.
Number 41. Spielberg was constantly threatened with being fired from production, and even being told he'd never work again by Universal executives and producers all the way back in Hollywood. Imagine being the guy who said, "Guess what, Mr. Steven Spielberg? You'll never work in Hollywood again after Jaws is done being made." Number 42. Spielberg was told by an actress at a party that everyone in Hollywood had actually gotten word of the dumpster fire that Jaws' production was, and how because of it, people kept saying that they weren't ever going to work with him. Number 43. Spielberg then left the party and sat in his log cabin and drowned himself in the most justifiable case of self-pity the world has ever seen. Even legends have their bad days, boys and girls. Number 44. Roy Scheider would exercise and/or sunbathe to get himself into the mindset of his character. Number 45. After getting permission from Steven Spielberg, Robert Shaw attempted to do the USS Indianapolis scene whilst actually being intoxicated.
I'll never put on a life jacket again.
Number 46. The USS Indianapolis scene was actually filmed two different ways, one where Robert Shaw was legitimately drunk and one where he was sober. Apparently, he was so drunk that some crew members actually had to carry him on and off the boat during filming. Number 47. Quint's line,
Lifeless eyes, black eyes like a doll's eyes,
was actually a line thought of and suggested to Spielberg by Roy Scheider. Number 48. Despite the bulk of the movie being filmed in Martha's Vineyard, Massachusetts, there are actually some shots that were filmed over 10,000 miles away from Martha's Vineyard, and none other than Australia. Number 49. Hooper's cage diving scene was actually filmed in Australia with a little person named Carl Rizzo. Number 50. The reason for Rizzo being in Dreyfuss's place was because they wanted to get a real shark, but the ones they found weren't big enough, so they cast Rizzo, who stood at a height of 4 feet 9 inches tall, to make the shark look bigger than it actually was. Number 51. Rizzo himself was actually attacked by a great white during filming and started panicking so badly that he used up all the oxygen in his scuba tank and even had a heart attack. Thankfully, though, he survived. Number 52. During setup, another great white had actually gotten into the cage and started to thrash around violently, and the crew even got it on film. Where is this amazing footage, you may ask? In the final film. Yup, the shark that we see destroying the cage in the movie was actually a very real great white shark. Number 53. The footage was almost deemed as useless, however, because Rizzo wasn't in the shot. This was integral because, in the film's original draft, Hooper was actually supposed to die. Number 54. Steven Spielberg ultimately decided to work around the footage and change the story so that Hooper would survive the events of the film. Number 55. The long-awaited day had finally arrived, and the Jaws crew was ready to film their last shot for the movie, the explosion scene. To achieve this effect, they filled their only shark head with fake blood and calamari. Number 56. At the last minute, Spielberg opted to leave the island because he found out that the crew had planned to throw him in the ocean as a way to celebrate the end of the shoot. Number 57. Steven Spielberg believed the ending of the Jaws novel was too anticlimactic and wanted a more exciting ending for the film. When he pitched the ending that we got to Peter Benchley, Benchley actually wasn't a fan, and even said that the idea of the shark chewing on the scuba tank and blowing up was too unbelievable. Spielberg's response? I don't care. Number 58. On the last day of filming, Spielberg arrived on set, set up the final shot, and quickly went back onto the boat that would take him back to shore. As the boat drove away, Spielberg yelled, "That's a wrap, I shall not return." Number 59. Jaws actually set this as a tradition for Spielberg, and he has since never been present to film the last shot of any of his movies. Number 60. The movie had finally wrapped principal photography. When it was all said and done, the film's budget jumped from $4 million to $9 million, and the film's schedule jumped from 55 days to a whopping 159 days. Holy shit. Number 61. Even after the filming of Jaws was over, a young Spielberg continued to have nightmares about being stuck at sea, and he's even joked that he still has nightmares about it to this day.
It was the hardest production I've ever experienced, and I still have nightmares about it.
Number 62. The film was edited in the pool house of the late great Verna Fields, Jaws' editor and second unit director. Number 63. Despite all the issues the production had, Spielberg apparently hadn't lost any creative motivation as a filmmaker, because he came up with one more idea on how to scare the audience during the editing process. This idea spawned what many consider to be the scariest jump scare in the movie, the Ben Gardner scene. Number 64. To save themselves the trouble of going back to the ocean, the Ben Gardner scene was actually filmed in Verna Fields' swimming pool. Number 65. In order to give off the effect that Hooper was in the ocean, Spielberg poured milk into Verna Fields' pool to make it a little extra murky. Not really sure what that does to a pool, but my guess is that it's probably not anything good. But they got a good scare out of the audience, so I guess it's okay. Number 66. John Williams composed all the music for Jaws, but when he first gave Steven Spielberg a sample of the film's main title score, Spielberg initially thought that Williams was just messing with him. Number 67. At the time of this video's recording, the entire Jaws soundtrack on iTunes has no one-star reviews. Number 68. Jaws was released to the public for the first time ever on June 20th, 1975, and for anyone who worked on the movie, tensions were high and expectations for success were very, very low. Number 69. Expectations were so low that Richard Dreyfuss even said in an interview that if he wasn't good in Jaws, or if Jaws as a whole wasn't good, then don't be surprised, as Universal made no attempts to make the filmmaking process easy for anyone.
Are you saying that you're going to be bad in Jaws?
In my opinion, yes.
Number 70. Steven Spielberg was actually too scared to watch the movie from his seat, so he watched it close to the exit so that he could take one step out of the auditorium should the premiere not go well. Number 71. During Alex Kittner's death scene, a fellow moviegoer got up from their seat and ran out of the auditorium. He then ran past Spielberg and threw up on the floor before he could make it to the restroom. Number 72. Much to the surprise of the production crew, and especially Steven Spielberg himself, Jaws was a massive success and even ended with a standing ovation from its crowd. It wasn't long before it temporarily became the highest-grossing movie of all time. Number 73. Jaws was the film that truly started Steven Spielberg's journey to become the living legend that he is today, and ensured him from a young age that he had a very bright future ahead of him. Number 74. Jaws wasn't the last time that Steven Spielberg and Richard Dreyfuss worked together, as Richard Dreyfuss would later star as the lead in Spielberg's Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Number 75. In spite of giving a performance worthy of 5 Oscars, Robert Shaw actually didn't make so much as a penny off of the movie. Well, technically he did. However, he had a lot of debt that needed to be paid off, so his paycheck was immediately seized by the government. Number 76. All 3 animatronic sharks were sadly destroyed sometime after production ended. Rest in peace, you beautiful SOB. There was, however, a full-scale model of the shark left over from production, and it was sadly left to rot in the Alden Brothers junkyard in Southern California for more than 30 years. Number 77. Thankfully, this story does have a happy ending. The junkyard eventually closed, and one of the owners, Nathan Alden, donated the shark prop to the Academy. Number 78. Unsurprisingly, being left out in the hot California sun for 30 years left Bruce pretty badly damaged and in desperate need of a makeover. That's when Walking Dead director and legendary makeup artist Greg Nicotero stepped in to save the day. Number 79. After a 7-month restoration process, Bruce was returned to his original glory and weighed in at 1,208 pounds. He now resides as a grand display in the Academy Museum of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences in Los Angeles, California, where he belongs.
That belongs in a museum!
Number 80. In spite of being referred to as a he in both the film and by the production crew, hence the name Bruce, it's very possible that the shark may have in fact been a female within the world of the movie itself. The reason being that female great whites on average are significantly bigger than male great whites. Adult female great whites tend to be 15 to 21 feet in length, whereas adult male great whites on average are 11 to 13 feet in length. Number 81. Despite the film's universal praise, Peter Benchley actually regretted writing the novel. After the release of the movie, the general public saw sharks as man-eating monsters, and people began killing great whites because of it. Benchley felt responsible for this, so to make amends, he dedicated the rest of his life to shark conservation and education. Number 82. Despite being 2 hours long, we don't actually get a good look at Bruce until 1 hour and 21 minutes into the movie. Number 83. The bridge we see in the estuary scene is actually called the Jaws Bridge in real life. During the summer, you'll find dozens of people jumping off of it into the water below. In most places, you're not really allowed to do that, but the Martha's Vineyard town officials have declared that if you do, it's done at your own risk. They even have shirts with different designs that say, "I jumped from the Jaws Bridge and lived to tell about it." Bonus fact, I've actually been to the island and even jumped off the Jaws Bridge. And yes, I refuse to leave the island without that shirt. I'm not sorry, Mom and Dad. Number 84. Remember the scene with that guy in the estuary getting eaten? There's actually an extended version of that scene. In the extended version, it actually shows the guy getting dragged by the shark and even grabbing Chief Brody's son in the process. The scene was cut from the movie though, due to Spielberg believing that it was too violent and in bad taste. Number 85. The first person casted in Jaws was Chief Brody's wife, Ellen Brody, played by Lorraine Gary, who was also Sid Sheinberg's wife in real life. Number 86. Jaws was re-released on Blu-ray on August 14, 2012, and in 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray on June 2, 2020. In order to convert Jaws to Blu-ray, a team of editors went through the original film's negatives and fixed any and all scratches or dirt that they had. Number 87. The restoration of the film is actually really impressive when you start to consider the math behind it. The film ran at 24 frames per second and is roughly 2 hours, 4 minutes, and 11 seconds long, or 124 minutes. If each frame did in fact have to be edited in some capacity, that means that if my calculations are correct, and we multiply the frame rate by the film's runtime, then that would mean that about 178,824 individual frames were edited for the film's Blu-ray release. To reiterate what I said before, holy shit. Number 88. Lee Fierro, or Mrs. Kittner, went to eat at a seafood restaurant one day and noticed that the menu had what was called the Alex Kittner sandwich. Shortly after mentioning to staff that she played Alex Kittner's mother in the original movie, she was greeted by the owner, who was none other than Jeffrey Voorhees, the guy who had actually played Alex Kittner in Jaws all those years ago. This was their first time seeing each other since the film's original shoot. Number 89. The line,
"You're gonna need a bigger boat,"
wasn't actually scripted, but was totally improvised by Roy Scheider. Number 90. The shooting stars we see in Jaws are real and not actually special effects, as many people have claimed. Number 91. Jaws won the Oscar for Best Music in 1976. John Williams was actually conducting the orchestra playing the film's iconic score as the film was declared the winner. He quickly had to run up to the stage, accept the award, and then run back to continue conducting the orchestra. Number 92. Jaws was also nominated for Best Picture, but unfortunately lost as it was beaten by Stanley Kubrick's One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Oh, I didn't get it. I didn't get it.
Number 93. When adjusted for inflation, Jaws is actually the 13th highest grossing movie of all time, earning $2.1 billion at the worldwide box office. Number 94. Susan Backlini's gruesome death in the movie seemed so authentic that for a time there was actually a rumor that her pain was genuine because she had a broken rib as a result of the constant yanking. Backlini has since dismissed the rumors as untrue. Number 95. The Mythbusters actually proved that the scuba tank in Jaws wouldn't have blown up when shot, but instead it would have just flown around in all directions. Number 96. The scene in which Charlie and Dan Herter attempt to catch the shark using a roast is almost completely ADR, or voiceover for those of you who don't know movie lingo. It's a little difficult to see, but if you look closely, you can see that almost none of their lines match even closely with their mouth movements.
Charlie, take my word for it. Don't look back. Swim, Charlie. Swim. Come on, Charlie. Swim.
Number 97. If you look closely at Chief Brody's report on Chrissy, you can see that it's dated as July 1st, 1974, even though the film came out in 1975. Number 98. Because the topic of the movie Jaws isn't nostalgic enough, we needed to make a video game about it. That game is called Jaws Unleashed, which was released in 2005 and is a game where you can actually play as the shark. Number 99. Richard Dreyfuss jokingly claimed that he actually reprised his role as an older Hooper in Piranha 3D, which makes sense as he has Hooper's costume and even sings Show Me the Way to Go Home. Thankfully though, this is not the case, as his character is credited as Matt Boyd, not Matt Hooper. The Jaws cinematic universe still has yet to exist. Don't get any ideas, Hollywood. Number 100. Universal opened up the first official Jaws ride at Universal Orlando Resort in 1990 and would permanently shut it down in the year 2012. At the time of this recording, Universal has not yet commented on exactly why they made this decision. But don't worry, because there's still a Jaws ride that's up and running in Universal Studios in Japan. Number 101. Steven Spielberg was apparently very hurt by the decision to remove the Jaws ride, as Universal Studios had not asked for his permission to do so. Some reports even claim that Spielberg threatened to never work with Universal again if they did the same thing to the E.T. ride. Number 102. Roy Scheider and Richard Dreyfuss actually reunited on, of all places, an episode of Family Guy.
Then there was Joey Duchamp. The voice in his head was Roy Scheider.
How are you, Richard?
Fine, Roy. How are you?
Good, good. We should grab a drink sometime and catch up. Maybe reminisce about Jaws.
Number 103. More than 40 years later, Jaws is still beloved by audiences, but especially by Robert Shaw's son, Ian Shaw, who actually did a meta-play version of the film called The Shark is Broken. The play mainly focuses on the behind-the-scenes drama of the movie from a comedic standpoint, and Ian Shaw actually got to play his father. Number 104. The R rating didn't exist in 1975, so Jaws was rated PG, but it has blood and gore, violence, foul language, smoking, and even nudity, so if the film came out today, it most definitely would have been rated R. Number 105. The popular web series Kill Count, hosted by the amazing James A. Janisse, claims that Jaws has 5 human deaths. Excluding Bruce, the tiger shark, and possibly Pippin, the film's total death count is as follows: Chrissy Watkins, Alex Kittner, Ben Gardner, the estuary victim, and Quint. However, this count is wrong, and there is all but one person missing from the kill count. And James, if you're watching this, I wouldn't feel too bad. It's such a minor detail that most people wouldn't notice it, and it seems like almost no one else really has. Believe me, I combed through the deepest, darkest parts of the internet, and it seems like almost no one else has noticed this death. The only other person I could find was an unnamed kill count fandom user who pointed it out. But even so, it is a death so minuscule that I myself didn't even notice it until a couple of years ago, even after seeing the movie an ungodly amount of times. So without further ado, this death comes in the form of Ben Gardner's friend. Assistant? First mate? I don't really know what the relationship here is, but I do know that he dies. Let me explain. The last time we see the two together is when everyone is out looking for the shark. The next time we see Ben Gardner, we see his frightening corpse in the hull of his destroyed boat, but the other guy is nowhere to be seen. It's also interesting that after everyone goes out to look for the shark, we never see the guy again in any part of the movie, dead or alive. My theory is that Ben Gardner and this guy fought Bruce off screen, and obviously lost. He must have been devoured by Bruce, as this is the last time we see either of them alive in the movie. Think about it, if we never see him again and the last place he was seen was on the boat of a guy who never went back to shore because he was getting eaten by Bruce, then there's nowhere for him to go. Seeing as how it's very unlikely that this guy for whatever reason jumped onto another boat, and even less likely he was able to escape Bruce, but Ben Gardner wasn't, I can say without a shred of doubt this guy's 100% dead, bringing the human kill count from 5 victims to 6 victims. Number 106. To the surprise of absolutely no one, Jaws is the highest grossing film in the Jaws franchise, defeating all of its unnecessary sequels by 10 miles. And finally, number 107. Steven Spielberg has confirmed that so long as he lives, Jaws will never ever get a sequel or be remade, in spite of Universal's efforts to get that to happen. Yes, they've actually tried in the past, but good old Uncle Steven shut that down real quick. We can all now sleep well at night, knowing that there's one less masterpiece we have to worry about being ruined.
Here's to swimming with bow-legged women.
Well, that certainly took a while, but it was Jaws, so it was all worth it. Well, anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching, and as per usual, if you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and leave me a comment down below letting me know what you think. If you guys want to see more videos like this, be sure to hit that subscribe button. But until next time, guys, I'll see you all in the next video. But until then, gotta catch up on some reading.